Hi guys, welcome back to Nick's Reads. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you love watching bookish content like I do, and give this video a like if you enjoyed the format. Let's discuss the 5 books that I finished in June. You can stay until the end to see how much money I saved by using my library card. I'll talk about the books from worst to best. I don't have a 5-star book for June, unfortunately, but I have quite a few 4-star books that I really enjoyed. To start with the book that I gave 2.75 stars to, it's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Swedish writer Stieg Larsson. I have very mixed feelings about this book. I gave it an under 3-star rating because overall I was so confused because this book is hyped immensely. I was expecting a fast-paced, super well-written thriller, but it turned out to be so slow, and the story didn't pick up until the 50% mark. I'm not kidding you. Our main character is not a police detective. He's a financial journalist called Michael Blomqvist. Michael Blomqvist, I think. A very wealthy family patriarch named Henrik Wanger approaches him because decades and decades ago, his young niece Harriet Wanger just vanished, and he has suspicions that somebody in his family has murdered her. But the police has never figured out what happened. They never found a body, and for one reason or the other, he thinks that Michael can help him out. The other main character that we follow is Lisbeth Salander, which I think she's the more interesting character out of the two of them. She's like a private investigator on crack. She has multiple ways on figuring out the most intimate details about people's lives. My main issue with this book is that it is so misogynistic, so sexist. I'm giving the author the benefit of the doubt because I think even this book was released posthumous. Or was it only the second and third book? I'm not sure, don't quote me on that. And this was written, I think, over 20 years ago. This was released in the early 2000s. This book was clearly written from a male gaze point of view. It's a type of book where female characters are being characterized by how their bodies look like. It's the type of book where a female character is judged by the way her breasts look like, that kind of thing. On top of that, there's a huge trigger warning, by the way, for sexual assault. And it felt gratuitous. He's using this in a way to basically build character, to make a story arc for one of the characters happen, and I get that, but it's very graphic. I honestly think that the character growth could have come from something else. And also, every single female in this book wants to sleep with Michael Blomqvist. I'm not kidding you. He's like effortlessly super attractive and apparently a bomb in bed. All of this to say that this is quite outdated in terms of characters and clearly written by a male author 20+ years ago. Honestly speaking, if this book was written this year or 2 years ago, I don't think I would pick up the next 2 books in the series, but it so happens that I already bought them. I already have them. I had committed from the start to this trilogy. And I do have to say that the story does get very interesting after the 50% mark. That is when I was essentially not able to put this book down. I have to give it to the author that this really becomes a page turner, and I was really invested in the story. I wanted to know what happened. That's why I'm a bit conflicted, but I think I'm gonna give the second book a shot because I have it here anyways. I already bought it. But if that one doesn't work out for me, I'm not gonna bother with the third. Does anybody else have similar feelings about this book? Because if I look on Goodreads, a lot of people are giving this 5 stars. I mean, this is a very famous novel. At times I felt like I was reading a different book from anybody else. Next up with 3 stars, this is probably gonna be a bit controversial as well, just because I know that a lot of people love this book and this author. It's Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I buddy read this with my sister, and she pretty much felt the exact same way about this book as I did. So I know I'm not alone. The fictional character of Carrie Soto is a world famous tennis champion who broke so many records back in the 90s. I think it was the 90s, don't quote me on that. She's been playing tennis since she was a little girl, always with her dad coaching her and having her back and pushing her. Where the story picks up is actually after her retirement, because there's another tennis star rising during that time who is threatening to break all of her records. She feels threatened and does something that nobody else has really done before, which is to come out of retirement and play Wimbledon and I think it was French, US, and Australian Open again. Carrie Soto is not supposed to be a likable character. She is very determined, she's driven by her craft, and there isn't a lot of room for her personal life. So by default, you may respect her, but you won't really like her, which is okay. I don't need to like a character to become attached to one and want them to succeed. This book lives and breathes tennis, but you don't have to play tennis or even like tennis to enjoy this, because the point of this book is really about Carrie and her backstory and also how she goes about training to get her records back. I personally don't really follow any tennis matches. I play it for leisure, but I don't have a huge attachment to the sport. The author did an excellent job in explaining all of the strategies, the moves, the techniques, any kind of tennis lingo, so that even somebody without any prior knowledge to tennis can understand this book. Common themes in this novel are ageism and sexism, because she is a female athlete, right? I think still to this day, a female athlete is under so much more scrutiny and being questioned in all of their choices a billion times more than a male athlete. And at the time of these books, she's in her mid-30s, but in tennis, that is considered old. So she's being picked apart based on her age as well. The reason why I gave this 3 stars, which makes this my lowest rated Taylor Jenkins Reid book so far, is because it is very repetitive. I enjoyed the first part of the book most, when you learn about her upbringing and how she became this tennis star. But after that, when it comes to her training for her comeback, it is very redundant, because she trains, we get that part, and then she plays, and then she trains again, and then she plays, and she trains again, and then she plays a match again. And at 50%, I said to my sister, you know what, I'm kind of over this book now, because I anyways have my suspicions of what's gonna happen in the end. And she had the same feeling about it. I could have put it down after 50%, but I was doing a buddy read, and anyways, it wasn't really that long, so I just pushed through it and I finished it, but I didn't love it. I felt like the storyline was coming in circles, although there was character growth there. Again, I am not faulting the character of Carrie Soto here, because just as Evelyn Hugo and in Daisy Jones and the Six, Taylor Jenkins Reid is a master of making these fictional celebrity characters feel like they're real. It feels like I could go on YouTube and watch clips of her tennis matches back from the 80s and 90s. She feels so real. It is really just the storyline where I was getting bored. I honestly didn't really care about the romance part in this book, which obviously is quite important in a Taylor Jenkins Reid book. I thought the most interesting relationship in here was between Carrie and her dad. In conclusion, out of all the Taylor Jenkins Reid books, I honestly think you can skip this one. Read Evelyn Hugo, read Daisy Jones and the Six. I also read One True Loves, which I enjoyed, but this one you honestly don't really need to read, in my opinion. If you want to read a very good tennis drama, like fiction book, then I would suggest you to read Leanne Moriarty's Apples Never Fall, because it's also about a tennis family, and that was much more interesting than this one. Next up, I have 2 nonfiction memoirs, which reading or listening to them back to back turned out to be not that great of an idea, because they're very heavy hitting books. The first one is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. I got off the waiting list of the library after I think several months. This book is very, very popular. I honestly don't think I have any new opinions to say about this book, because pretty much everybody who's reviewed this loved it. I think it is a very well written memoir. I think Jennette is a very talented writer. I enjoyed the journey. Well, not enjoyed, it's not a good word to use for this, because it is about her past trauma and the difficult upbringing she had, and difficult relationship she has with her mom, who turns out to be emotionally and I think even physically abusive. I read this because I knew this actress from iCarly. I was just very, very sad for her. I cannot believe that she had to grow up like this and being forced into becoming a child actress, or an actress in general, because it was clearly never her dream. It was really her mom's, and she was pushed into that world and being pushed to go to auditions over and over again, and she basically had no free time, no command of her own body, her own wants. This book also made me think about child actors in general, because I just cannot imagine a child to want to face that much rejections in auditions and want to practice and not have free time, and you know, being exposed to so much criticism by adults in such a young age. I just can't imagine that being a fun experience. So now I'm wondering if any child actor ever was being forced into that role, into that métier. Because I understand that if, you know, by the time maybe you're a teenager, this is something that you actually want for yourself and you push yourself through all of that rejections and schlep yourself from one audition to the other. But as a child, I cannot imagine a child choosing that kind of life over playing and having fun and making friends and just being at school. I don't know. And as a former iCarly watcher, it was very satisfying also to read about her relationship with Miranda Cosgrove, because she was the main character on that show. I gave this 4 stars. Obviously, my rating has nothing to do with her actual life or the decisions that she made. It is really just about how the book came together and her writing. I think she did a great job in relaying her past experiences, especially with her mom and being on set. What was missing for me is that as a memoir, I think towards the end, I would have been interested in hearing a bit more about her healing and how she's overcome all of this, because I mean, truthfully, I don't know if she has. I would have liked a bit more of a longer looking back window. Then the other memoir that I also gave 4 stars to is Hunger, A Memoir of My Body by Roxane Gay. I heard from multiple people that they absolutely love this memoir. It's one of their favorite memoirs of all time, and I can totally see why. This is basically about her traumatic experience, a major traumatic experience that led to how she views her body, and it is a very upsetting story to hear, obviously, and I'm very sorry that she had to go through this. Roxane Gay is a sexual assault survivor, and that is what makes, I think, about 50% of this book, because going into it, I thought that this is going to be more about just body image, her relationship with her body, with maybe diets and how she treats her body, but a lot of this is really about that traumatic experience and how it reflected on how she treated herself and her body afterwards, which makes this also a story about how she used to see and measure her self-worth. This is incredibly profound, insightful. It is not a light read. Trigger warning, obviously, for sexual assault. She also talks a lot about how overweight people are being treated and perceived, specifically in the US, and what fat phobia means in this context. One of the reasons I rated this a bit lower is because I did read Bad Feminist before, and I did think that some of the stories were a bit repetitive. I highly recommend this, and also recommend the audiobook version. Lastly, also with 4 stars, I read The Whispers by Ashley Audrain. This is the author that wrote The Push, which was a huge success. I read this as a NetGalley arc, which was cool. The setup of the story is fairly easy. We're looking at the lives of a few neighbors in a very affluent street that used to be the homes of a lot of Portuguese immigrants. One family on the street suffers a tragedy where the young boy in this family falls out of the window in the middle of the night and does not wake up. He is in a coma in the hospital, and while the mom, Whitney, is staying at his side and, you know, wondering if he's gonna wake up, we're going into all the families on the street that have to do with each other and looking into their lives and what their involvement is into this boy falling out of the window and being in between life or death at this moment. In a way, this reminded me of a Leanne Moriarty drama, but just much nastier and so much raw. This book was like snooping in people's houses and looking through their dirty, disgusting laundry. To me, this is first and foremost about how complicated motherhood is, because everybody approaches this differently, and that goes also for the women on the street. So one of the women is desperately trying to become pregnant, and she has so many miscarriages along the way. There's definitely a huge trigger warning here, because the miscarriages are also described very graphically, which I don't think I've read that before. And we have another mom on the street who basically gave up her job and everything to become a stay-at-home mom for her daughter, which she has her own thoughts about that, but then other people perceive it in a different way, obviously, because in this world, you just get judged no matter what if you decide to stay home, if you decide to go to work, right? And Whitney, the mom of the boy who fell out of the window, she herself is a professional woman who decided to keep on pursuing her career, who's questioning if motherhood is even something that is right for her. This book is making me not want to have children because it really does not shy away from showing you how much your life can change after having kids, and it's not always nice, and it can get very chaotic and messy. And it also talks about the relationship that these women have with their partners. This book definitely had a lasting impression on me, and I will recommend this to other people, maybe not to everybody, but for people who can appreciate very morally ambiguous characters, the gray zones of motherhood, then this is something for you. One of the reasons I gave this 4 and not 5 stars is because one of the characters, her name's Mara, she kind of takes an observer role in the street, and I think that while her story was moving, I think it ultimately didn't really contribute to the overall plot line, and I think that those pages honestly could have been filled with stories from the other women's lives, because those were also very, very interesting. So those were the 5 books that I read in June. Overall, a very good reading month. What was your favorite read of June? Let me know. And have you read any of these 5 books that I just mentioned? So by using my library card, I saved $103.90 Canadian before tax. So if you don't have a library card yet and your city has one, then please go ahead and use that resource. It'll save you a lot of money, and you get to read so many more books. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.